Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Valentine's Day edition of the Bible. Delight in the details. I'm J. Lenora Bressler, and things are heating up. Yes, right here in my sauna and on a passionate, romantic Valentine's Day. I hope you're having a great day so far, and we'll have a wonderful sweetheart of a day. Now, today we're going to talk about the origin of Saint Valentine's Day, which is appropriate on a program dedicated to Christianity because Saint Valentine was, of course, a Christian saint. Valens was a very common name in ancient antiquity. It really means valor in the Latin language. And so there are actually several different people in the early Christian church that were known as Valens or Valentinus. But the one after whom this holiday is named was a particular bishop. He was from Terni, Italy, and he lived in the 3rd century A.D. Now, this was a time when Christianity was really growing. It had gotten a lot of converts, particularly interestingly in the military. And this was a great concern to the emperor. He believed that for one reason is that, as you know, Christianity promotes the family very much. And so there was a desire on the part of many Christian soldiers to marry before they were deployed. And the emperor believed that if a soldier was married, this made him not fight as hard because he was trying to save his life and all he cared about was getting back to his family. And so the legend is, and the early history is, that Claudius Gothicus, one of the emperors of the Roman Empire, made an edict that said that it was illegal for soldiers who were about to be deployed, who were unmarried, to become married. Well, Saint Valentine, Bishop Valentine, he said no, that we should allow that. And so he would marry people regardless. And this and other things that he would preach about got him in some trouble. Apparently, the legend goes that he actually had an audience with the emperor himself, and he impressed the emperor. And in fact, the emperor kind of liked him and was disposed to let him go until Valentinus thought, I can convince this guy. I can persuade him to become a Christian even. And I guess that was a bridge too far. And that ticked off the emperor, and he threw him in jail in Rome. The story goes that he befriended the jailer. The jailer had a blind daughter named Julia. And there is an indication that there was a healing and that she got her sight back. Now, some accounts say this, some say no, she did not. But regardless, we do know that Valentinus made a favorable impression on both of them, and both the jailer and his daughter became Christian. He taught the daughter all about all kind of things, including about God. And ultimately, he was killed. He was, according to tradition, he was beaten and then beheaded outside the Via Appia, or Via Flaminia, Via Flaminia, outside one of the gates of Rome. The tradition is that Julia planted an almond tree on the site of his execution. And that is why, to this day, almonds are known as a sign of love and devotion. And that's why so many of us eat candied almonds at weddings. The tradition is that on the night before his execution, he wrote a final teaching letter to Julia, and he signed it from your Valentine. Valentine has been celebrated as a saint through the Dark Ages, the Middle Ages, the Renaissance. To this day, he is still considered a saint in the Catholic Church, and we celebrate his feast day on the day of his execution, which is believed to have been February 14th, 269. There is some research that says it might have been 272 or 276, but certainly in that, and the best date that we have is 269 AD. Now, interestingly, it was during the Middle Ages that Valentinus became even more associated with romantic love. He was sort of associated with that because of his marrying the military people in the Roman army. But Lupercalia was a Latin festival that happened on February 14th that had been carried over and was still being practiced during the Middle Ages. It had to do with the coming of spring, and it was believed that February 14th was the date that birds found their mates for the year. And this prompted all kind of interesting games and activities. In the Middle Ages, boys and girls of marriageable age would put their names in a box. Well, actually the girls would. And the boys would come along and they would pick a name at random out of the box, and that was to be their sweetheart. And the boys would literally take the pieces of paper and with the girl's name, and they would attach it to the sleeves of their jacket on Valentine's Day. And that is the origin of the phrase, wearing your heart on your sleeve. Cupid, of course, is a symbol of Valentine's Day because Cupid was the Roman god of love. He was the love child, allegedly, of Aphrodite, the goddess of love, and Mars, the god of war, which may explain why we still say there is a war between the sexes. So there are so many kind of interesting traditions underlying Valentine's Day. It is a Christian holiday. So those of us that are Christians should celebrate the heck out of it, because we know that the Bible says God is love. Of all the many attributes that God has, and He is holy, and He is just, and He is righteous, and He is generous, and He is kind, and He is so many other things. The Bible says God is love. If you want to understand what love truly is in its best, highest, and most ferocious and passionate form, you have to know God Himself. And so it is a great Christian holiday. And I encourage you, and I will say this, I know some of my friends feel differently about this, but I will say this. Valentine's Day is not about romance entirely. Yes, it's great to have somebody in your life that you are passionately, romantically involved with, but whether you have that right now or not, you can celebrate Valentine's Day. It's not about you, it's about somebody else, and it doesn't have to be a romantic love. Think about who would benefit from a little remembrance from you, whose life would be enlivened, whose heart would be lifted by a thoughtful, unexpected Valentine remembrance from you, whether it's an electronic card or a little candygram, or just you calling them up and saying, just wanted to wish a real sweetheart a Valentine's Day. When you play Cupid, you realize that it really is more blessed to give than to receive. And perhaps ultimately, that is the best and the truest message of Saint Valentine. I'm J. Lenore Bressler, wishing all you sweethearts a wonderful, heart-filled Valentine's Day. Visit me tomorrow on the next edition of the Bible, Delight in the Details.